everybody? It's Davey from the 80s, and you are now entering the Cinema Chop Shop. So park your ass right there. And while you're there, check the description down below, and maybe you can help support my channel through Patreon. Just go ahead and click it, and you can recommend movies and music for me to review. We are back at it again today with a review for Judas and the Black Messiah. Now, to be honest with you guys, I was very hyped when I learned about this movie because I've been saying for many years that we needed a movie about Fred Hampton. Not too many people know about him, and so I have to tread softly in this review about what I say because some people aren't familiar with Fred Hampton. So I don't want to give anything about the movie or the man himself away without you seeing this film first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this video into pieces. The first part is going to be spoiler-free, going to just discuss the film on its own, and then I'm going to have a great discussion piece towards midway, and that's going to have some spoilers in it, and I'll warn you ahead of time. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. A 2021 film, Judas and the Black Messiah. Quick synopsis. All right, so basically this movie follows William O'Neill, who was an informant that was placed inside of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party in order to gain information about the party and Fred Hampton. And basically this was a part of the COINTELPRO program where they put informants and people within the organization in order to make it crumble from within. It was an elaborate scheme created by the FBI in order to topple these organizations. So this movie follows the character William O'Neill, who was an informant who was tasked with basically gaining information on Fred Hampton's chapter of the Black Panther Party and the man himself. Now, like I said, I don't want to go into too much detail about it because, like I said, for those of you who are not familiar with Fred Hampton's story, I don't want to ruin it for you. And for those of you who have not seen the movie yet, I don't want to ruin it for you. So I'm not going to just assume that people are familiar with Fred Hampton as I am. So that's a synopsis that I'm going to leave it at. Now, Daniel Kaluuya, he plays Fred Hampton. And I remember in my initial trailer reaction, I talked about how he doesn't look like Fred Hampton. He don't look like Fred Hampton, but the man sounds exactly like Fred Hampton. He's on point with the way that he vocalizes his words and the way that he speaks and the mannerism and the tone that he does. He really mimicked Fred Hampton's like vernacular and the way that he speaks to the T. And that was, to me, that was something amazing. That's an amazing feat, especially from an actor. So I wasn't like this huge Daniel fan. I know he has acting chops. I know he can act, but I never thought that he would be this good, right? So seeing him in his role as Hampton, I was and I had high expectations. I had like the bar set high because Hampton is one of the iconic Black civil rights revolutionary leaders that I've read a lot about. Excuse me. So I was very, very critical on if Daniel could pull off Fred, and he did an amazing job at him. And I'm going to get into a critique a little bit later when I talk more about the negative aspects of this film. Lakeith Stanfield, my man, anything that he touches is gold. That dude is an amazing actor. His whole thing is William O'Neill being the informant, amazing. And it's like, little things that he did made you really showcase how good of an actor he is, right? You've seen moments where he like would just do things and his facial tone and his body language would tell you everything, even before he even says anything. So he did a really good job at playing that character. You would swear that he was really being thrown in the situation that he's in, the way that his demeanor was, right? He is a magnificent actor that honestly, he played that shit to the T. He did an amazing job. Kudos to him for doing that. And him and Daniel were like the highlights of this freaking movie. They took over hands down. Now, when you have all the other supporting actors in this movie, they were also fairly great. The one thing that I notice or I can't stand is that when I'm watching a great movie and everybody seems like they're doing this part, but then you got this one person that just feels like they don't fit in, This movie didn't have that. This movie, everybody that was in this movie felt like they were a perfect cog within a machine, and it ran perfectly, right? As far as the director, Shaka King, fairly new director, hasn't really done much. So this, to me, when looking at the history or the filmography that Shaka King has done, I'm looking at this director as a new booty director. This is somebody new to the game, and honestly, it's yeah, that was a crazy piece to give somebody that's new to the game. But I'm glad that this person was Shaka King was able to tackle it and handle it with such care, right? Because this is a very, very serious story that needed to be told, right? Pros about this movie. The movie does a very good job at bringing out emotion of you. You feel everything that it wants you to feel. I know sometimes you watch movies and it tries to make you feel sad and you're like, that ain't working. Or if you watch a movie and they're trying to get you mad and you're just like, I don't care. But this movie does a very good job at conveying emotions and bringing them out of you. So when you're watching the movie, you're just like, damn, like, like you feel everything that the characters feel. Every scene that's meant to take emotion out of you, it does so. It does so perfectly. And also, we finally, just another pro about this movie is we finally get to see Fred Hampton. I've been wanting to see a Fred Hampton movie for so long, and I talked about it with friends all the time. And to finally have a Fred Hampton movie to actually watch, it's kind of a dream come true, right? But it comes with flaws, not flaws, but it comes with cons. And like I said, I'll explain that a little bit later, what those actually are. Now, the score of the movie is great. They have the music that fit the era. The one thing I can't stand is when I'm watching a movie that's an era piece and they have music that doesn't fit the era. I never like that. I hate when movies do that. It's a pet peeve of mine. Some people aren't bothered by it, but I am. Like, I do not want to be listening to Little John while the Titanic is going down. That's just me, though. So I'm glad that the score of the movie actually fit the time era. Like I said, the supporting cast looked great. The movie is very fluid. Now, when I say fluid, it's like it's a 2-hour movie. So I love movies that are like 2 hours or 2+ hours, and they don't feel like 2+ hours movie. This movie was very fluid. It flowed very well. It flowed very natural. It didn't feel like it was stalling. It didn't feel like it was stagnant. It didn't feel like it was dragging. It flowed right through from beginning to the end in one single motion. And it's like an emotional roller coaster that you just don't want to get off of. It's a great movie, and it doesn't feel like it's like forcing it. You know what I'm saying? So I love the fluid nature of the film and how it didn't feel like it's just like, it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel bumpy. It just was smooth, right? Now, here are some of my cons. It's not that many, but here it goes. If you're familiar with the Black Panther Party and the things that they've been through, then you're probably going to watch this movie and you're going to say that they're low-key trying to paint them in a negative light, right? But that's not the case. If you're familiar with the Black Panther Party and the things that they've experienced and the things that people done to them, there was a lot of hostility and aggression, especially towards law enforcement, but that was for a reason. I wish this movie probably would have took some time to go ahead and emphasize that and maybe show how ridiculous some of these officers were. It did try to showcase it in one scene, but I felt like it wasn't elaborated on enough. And that's just my opinion on that part. But I felt like they should have showcased more of the tension or the things that the officers were doing in order to provoke some of these actions that were brought upon them. Because when you're watching it without context, it can be misinterpreted in one way. And there's a quote in this movie that's said by one of the FBI agents, and somebody that's watching from the outside can interpret it as something that it's not, right? And I guess I'm going to elaborate more on that later, especially if you stay on board for the spoiler section. Another thing, there was not enough Fred Hampton. I kind of knew that that's the route that this movie was going when I read the title, Judas and the Black Messiah. I knew that this movie was probably going to focus on Judas, who was O'Neill's character, and not Fred Hampton's character. I kind of knew that Fred Hampton's character was going to take a back seat to O'Neill's character because, like I said, this movie is called Judas and the Black Messiah, right? So we know that most likely this movie was going to follow O'Neill's character. But other than that, like, there's not really any like huge critiques I have for this movie outside of those things, right? So here on the Cinema Chop Shop, we grade movies in two manners. It's either one, you get bodied and sent to the bowels of hell, or you get spared and sent to heaven and all that good stuff. Obviously, this movie was a great, fantastic movie. If I have to grade it on a scale of 10, it's getting an 8. So obviously, this movie is getting spared.
He ain't earned the death. He ain't earned the death at my hands. God's only man, spared by the butcher.
Yes, you heard me. The movie is getting spared. So now this section right here is going to be spoiler, right? And I'm going to have a really good discussion. So I hope you guys are able to stay on board and continue on this journey with me because I have a lot to say about this movie. This is the first movie that I've seen in a very long time that made me want to sit down and actually have a discussion and talk about this film. So if you're able to, stay on board with me and let's keep talking about this movie. All right, but if you don't want to be spoiled or you're not familiar with what happened with Fred Hampton and the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party, I would advise you just move on it and come back when you're done. But please, 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 if you guys are interested, it's a very fun topic that I'm about to go into, so go ahead and stay on board. Now, one of the questions that came right out of my head off the gate after I finished this movie was, is this the Fred Hampton movie that we wanted? And there's a simple answer for that. No, it's not. It's a great movie. It's a fantastic movie, but at the same time, it's not the Fred Hampton movie that I wanted. The Fred Hampton movie that I wanted would showcase Fred Hampton. This movie was featuring Fred Hampton, right? So it talked about all the things that were going on behind the scenes in order to kill Fred Hampton. It didn't really showcase who Fred Hampton was, the man that defended himself in a court of law and was his own lawyer, the man that spoke so powerfully, the man, they did talk a little bit about how he went to these different places and he organized them. I wish they would have went into more about the Rainbow Coalition, but again, this is not Fred Hampton's movie. So this is not the Fred Hampton movie that I wanted, right? I'm glad that people were able to see a little bit about who Fred was and how amazing he was at speaking and getting people, right? But at the same time, it does no justice if this movie is not about him. This movie is about the snitch. It's about O'Neill. So when you're watching this movie, you're just like, damn, I want to learn more. I want to see more Fred. I want to see them showcase Fred, especially because they had such a great actor portraying him. So it's only natural that I want to see more. So I was disappointed that I didn't get to see more Fred. And to me, this is not the Fred Hampton movie that we wanted. It was needed because a lot of people need to understand the griminess that took place. And I guess that in a sense, it's a good idea because now you get to see all the cold shit that happened behind the scenes in order to make sure that this man was no longer living by the end of the movie. So in a way it's needed, but at the same time, I really wish they would have got a chance to show more about how Fred Hampton was literally going around Chicago and uniting people and how much fear that struck into the FBI and a J. Edgar Hoover and all of those cats. I really wanted to see more of that because like I said at the beginning of the movie, they talk about it. They feared the rise of the Black Messiah. The Black Messiah was somebody to them that would unify all the Black people. Now Fred Hampton comes along and this man's talking to poor white people. He's talking to poor Hispanic people. He's talking to poor Asian people. He's talking to poor Black people. He's talking to all these people. He found a message that basically unified all the people. It was a unifying struggle between all people, and they feared that. That is one of the most, it's dangerous enough as it is that they were afraid that, okay, if he gets all of these Black gangs in Chicago to unite, it's going to be a problem. But now you over here, you got him with the the radical Southern white group, the Patriot Party or the Patriot organization. Then you had him with the Young Lords. Then you had him with the other gang. So you had him basically going around Chicago and creating this rainbow coalition with other groups and forming this strong alliance that can, if they did revolt, they would stand a great chance in order to win that revolution, right? So I really wish they would have went into more detail about showcasing about Fred Hampton, but like I said, this movie isn't about Fred Hampton. So hopefully they go back to the drawing board and create a movie specifically about Fred Hampton. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon because they're probably going to think that it's too soon, right? But I really wish they would have went about it the first damn time. But that's just me. Now, another question I had was that after watching this movie, I'm very familiar with the Black Panther Party. So there was one name in the movie that stood out to me, and I was surprised that they mentioned him. They talked about Bunchy Carter, right? And for those of you that don't know, I'll print this Bunchy Carter. Bunchy Carter was basically one of the main dudes from the LA chapter of the Black Panther Party. This man was like a Fred Hampton in LA. So he was responsible for basically unifying gangs in Los Angeles and having them join under the Black Panther moniker. So he was getting these street cats to join the Black Panther Party, and he was basically unifying the gangs in LA, right? So because of this, the FBI put a target on his head because he was such a good speaker and because he was so good. He was a street cat that was able to bring people together. They were afraid of that. So they were like, you know what, we're going to have to put an end to this guy. And they did. So me personally, I know there's not much information on Bunchy Carter, like book-wise and things like that. So I would appreciate seeing a full-length film about Bunchy Carter. I think that would be an amazing, amazing movie to watch, right? And especially showcase that not too many people knew about the Los Angeles chapter of the Black Panther Party. A lot of people associate the Black Panther Party with Oakland, but there was a chapter in LA, and a lot of people don't even know about it, right? I think the headquarters was on Slauson, right? So, no, it was on Central, 41st, and I think 41st and Central. There was a documentary about it that I didn't get a chance to watch, and it upset me so much because it was very limited. So, but yeah, so I want to see a movie about Bunchy Carter. I think that'll be an amazing movie to watch, especially because they hinted at him in this movie. So maybe it can get some steam in the engine rolling, and hopefully we can eventually see a movie about him. Now, moving on, I had a discussion with a friend today. You may know him. His name is Jody from Jody's Corner. Shout out to Jody's Corner. And we were just talking, and he basically, me and him had this really big back and forth because I said that I felt, William O'Neill's character, or William O'Neill, the man who snitched on Fred Hampton and set everything up and had him killed, committed suicide in, I think, 1990. He ran into traffic, got hit by a car. Apparently, this isn't the first time he did it. And prior to him doing that day, I think he tried to jump out of the window, but he was talked back in or brought back in. So I said that this was his sins, or the idea of what he did eating away at him, right? And basically he couldn't deal with it no more, so he killed himself. Now the homie Jody was like, yo, I don't think that's the case. I think that what he did was completely selfish. Word got out after he did the interview. He had a target on the back of his head, and people was going to go out and gun for him, so he just took his own life instead. But me personally, like I said, I think that based on the information that we have, I feel like it shows more sense that he will be remorseful. Now, there was a good topic that was brought up when Jody brought up the interview, and he said he's a piece of shit because look at the way that he has no remorse. He showed that he doesn't care, right? And I completely agree with that. In the interview, he does, but at the same time, we have to realize that sometimes people act a certain way, but inside they're feeling different. Um, I think that nobody can feel that they're responsible for somebody's death and just be okay with it, right? Like I think in order to feel that way, you have to have some type of screw loose, right? But I don't think that he was okay with it. I think that there was remorse. I feel like he regretted it because Hampton died in front of his pregnant wife and his friends, and she could have died easily, but by the grace of God, she didn't. So I'm pretty sure in his head he was thinking like, you know what, like that's somebody you hung with, somebody you talked to, and they killed him, and you did that for money. And then I think eventually somewhere down the line, it just struck you, and you're just like, well, you know what, was it worth it? Was it worth the money? Because like in the movie, what it said, like he made like $200,000 through all the years, and it's like, really, was $200,000 worth a guilty conscience? Was it worth this eating away at you? Like, like you basically, apparently you had alcohol problems afterwards. So you were using alcohol as a mechanism in order to cope. So I think, this is my opinion, that he killed himself because he couldn't cope with it. He couldn't cope with what he had done, because you basically got a man killed who was going to be a father for the first time, didn't get to see his son be born, didn't get to fulfill his legacy, and his wife watched him die and now had to raise their son alone. So I think eventually somewhere down the line, you think about those things, and I think that he offed himself because he couldn't sleep with the demons. All that alcohol, everything that he was doing in order to calm them down and try to quiet them out and drown them out, it wasn't working anymore. It just made them louder. Eventually, they gained their voice. They were able to overpower him, and I think they took over. And from that moment on, he couldn't handle it, offed himself. That's just my opinion, though. But let me know if you guys agree with me, or if you guys think that he's just lying and fronting just for the cameras, or like basically like Lakeith Stanfield basically made his character look remorseful, but in all honesty, he wasn't a remorseful cat. That when he offed himself, it was completely in a selfish act in order to say, well, nobody else is going to kill me. I'll kill myself before they kill me. So let me know which mentality you agree with, right? Now, last but not least, I think that in this movie, they should have showed Lakeith Stanfield's character, William O'Neill. I feel like they should have showed him kill himself. Not like the legit like video clip. I mean, Lakeith Stanfield carrying out the act of O'Neill's character killing himself. The reason why I think it would go with it, because in this movie, like I said, Lakeith's character shows a lot of remorse. He thinks about the things that he's done, and you could tell that he doesn't want to do them. Like during the movie, you can see it. He felt bad about the police officers burning down the Panther organization. So what did he do? He helped rebuild it. He put in overtime and put it back together. You can tell that in certain scenes, like he regretted being that cat. So he was trying to, some way, some shape, form, or fashion, try to make amends with it. Try to make it better through other actions, right? So I think that it would have been good for them to show, fast forward, show Lakeith Stanfield's character maybe drinking, standing by the side of a highway, just drinking, maybe thinking to himself, or saying like a little drunken dialogue out loud, and just go wander off into the freeway and just get hit by a car. I think that would have been a nice way to end it, because it would have been the ending of a character arc, especially after seeing that interview. I think it would have been beneficial to his character. That's just me, though. Let me know if you guys think that would be an interesting ending for that particular scene or a character arc. Now, that's my review, and that's my discussion. I hope you guys stayed on and enjoyed this discussion, because I greatly appreciate you guys staying on board, watching this with me, and having this talk. So let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with anything that I just said. And until next time, this is David from the 80s, and you are now exiting the Cinema Chop Shop. I hope you guys have a magnificent day, and check this movie out. Adios.